there's a good chance you vowed not to do something that many of your friends have done. What is it? Has to do with vows. If a man vow a vow unto Yahweh, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his mouth. Then in Psalms, David says, Yahweh, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill? And, of course, part of the answer to that question is, he that sweareth to his own hurt and changeth not. Then in the New Testament, Paul lists covenant breaking right up there with sins such as fornication and murder. So we see from the Old Testament to the New Testament, throughout the Bible, it teaches that breaking vows, not keeping your word, is a sin. To put this in some practical terms, you may have a right to do something. Say you have the right to eat meat, as Paul says in Romans. But if you take a vow never to eat meat, then it would be a sin for you to eat meat. So you can make a vow that will change what is right or wrong for you. What is allowed for you may become disallowed if you vow not to do it. On another practical level is a big one. It's marriage. Yeshua says that you can divorce for the cause of fornication. Now there's a lot of discussion, debate about what that exactly means. But consider this. Most of our modern marriage vows contain either the phrase, till death do us part, or as long as we both shall live. So that's part of our vows. We've made vows that do not exclude any exception. Without an exception in the vows, we've promised not to do something that we might otherwise be allowed to do. In other words, if you promised that your marriage would be till death do us part, or as long as we both shall live, then it is a sin for you to divorce. You might be saying, well, that's not what I meant when I said my vows. The thing is, in the Bible, we have several stories that illustrate that even if you didn't mean something, if you let the word come out of your mouth, you're still held accountable. For instance, the Gibeonites, who Israel was commanded to completely wipe out, tricked the Israelites into making a covenant with them, into swearing to them that they would not kill them. And then Yahweh required them not to kill the Gibeonites. They were then required to break the command in order to fulfill their vow, because it was more important to keep their vow. Another one, the story of Jacob and Esau. Jacob tricks Isaac, his father, into blessing him, pretending to be Esau. And yet, that blessing that Isaac thought he was giving to Esau actually went to Jacob. And guess what? Jacob got that blessing. He couldn't take that blessing back, even though he thought he was giving it to Esau. He thought the situation was a lot different than what it actually was. Then you have the story of Jephthah in Judges. Jephthah promised to sacrifice the first thing that came out of the door of his house to greet him when he came back from victory. That ended up being his daughter. I'm sure he didn't think it was going to be his daughter that would come out. I'm sure he expected an animal. So in each of these cases, we have people making promises about something that turned out to be totally different. So basically, if you promised till death do us part, or as long as we both shall live, you promised not to divorce. It doesn't matter if you thought the situation was different at the time, if you thought this person was different than they actually represented themselves as. It doesn't really matter. If you made that promise, you are bound by it, and it is a sin for you to divorce. I'm Joshua Williams for DaringTheology.com.